Okay, so we're picking up where we left off with the last lecture burst. This one deals with the role of biology when it comes to what we can agree on is beautiful. What we know from just looking at the neurology of attraction, having someone who is hooked up to all kinds of electrodes on their head, looking at their brainwave activity, we are able to notice what people respond to, what people see as attractive. And what we've come to understand is that the more symmetrical a face, the more we perceive it as beautiful and healthy. So when we talk about like who looks healthy, we tend to see symmetry as a good thing. So symmetry would be, equidistance, your eyes from your nose, nose from your mouth, kind of all in symmetry. We also can look at gazing patterns of infants and just track the time spent gazing at faces. And what we notice is that infants will gaze longer at faces that have been rated attractive than faces that have been rated unattractive. And so that's a really interesting component in favor of the role of these innate sort of senses of what is beautiful, what is hardwired into us, because an infant obviously hasn't been socialized to know what beauty is. There's just something innate about a certain type of face, and one that is seen as attractive. So we know much more about the environment and the role it plays. We know that situations can influence our opinion of beauty. When we have limited options, right? Our pool of beauty is looks different than when we have a lot of options. So we might find ourselves making the statement, compared to most of the girls at this school, she is the best looking. But then when you get her outside that school and into a bigger arena, maybe that's not the case, right? So big fish, little pond type of thing. When we have great options and beauty is all around, we see that our opinions are influenced greatly. We see higher divorce rates and unsatisfied marriages, for example, in men who teach high school and college age, because those women are younger, comparative to middle age or older age. And so, the options for youth and vitality are all around. And so that's what we tend to see. Think about this in terms of social media today, right? Our pool just got really big. Endless, really, if you're talking about social media, what you could be exposed to, what you could see in your news feed representing beauty. The setting that you're in, right? We think about the term beer goggles, how something can influence us. Alcohol can influence your judgment. And all of a sudden, someone who wouldn't be seen as attractive is now suddenly seen as attractive. Or just the instance of, as your options get more limited, your definition of beauty changes. So we definitely see that happening a little bit. The contrast effect sort of speaks to some of this. This was part of the article reading 19, Why I Hate Beauty, the one that you guys did for your homework. And it talked about how we can be unconsciously dissatisfied with our actual partners due to the constant exposure we might have to very attractive others. So again, enter in social media. If you are like most people, a woman of average attractiveness seems a lot less attractive than she actually is if we first viewed several highly attractive women. So whoever you see first is going to kind of be your comparison, your standard. If a man's talking to a beautiful female at a party and then is joined by a less attractive one, all of a sudden that second woman is going to seem relatively unattractive. So it's interesting because we do this, and the contrast effect states that the differences between two things are exaggerated depending upon the order in which you see them. You're always going to compare to what you've already experienced. And this sort of relates to some observable characteristics. We tend to make instant evaluations. Remember our discussion about first impressions? This really falls in line there. When we first meet someone, if he or she reminds us of someone we like, we're going to like that person. And we're going to react to people first, usually on the basis of stereotypes, right? And we do this because it's a cognitive shortcut. A negative reaction to an observable characteristic, though, can prevent you from really knowing that person. If any of you guys have seen the movie Shallow Hal, this is in fact what happens there. He wouldn't give the main character the time of day if she looked how she really looked, but he's tricked into thinking she looks like Gwyneth Paltrow, and then he does give her the time of day. He falls in love with her personality, and then realizes when her real self is presented as a much heavier version of Gwyneth Paltrow, he loves her, and he realizes that beauty is only skin deep, and all that great stuff. But we do this. We make instant evaluations based on stereotypes, based on outward appearance, and we'd all like to be honorable and say, oh, that doesn't matter, that doesn't affect us, but it does. In fact, we have an idea that what is beautiful is good. This is sort of like a misnomer, but we make assumptions. The more attractive people are, they're assumed to also have positive qualities, right? So when someone is seen as attractive, we also assume that they're a good person, or that they're a popular person, or that they're an outgoing person. All of those other positive stereotypes we tend to apply to people. And so this can be very inaccurate, right? Because I've definitely met some beautiful people that aren't very good and don't have those other positive qualities, but still were affected by that schema and that stereotype in that way. The halo effect is related to this, in that people show a tendency to attribute more desirable traits to physically attractive people. Okay, what we see, I think it's described in the book, subjects are introduced to different students, 30 male, 30 female students. They're given an envelope, 3 envelopes, I think, with a picture in each. And those pictures are attractive, average looking, or unattractive. And then subjects recorded their judgments on personality traits that would be attached to each of those photos, and what their future prospects would be. And the results really actually showed that attractive individuals were perceived as possessing more socially desirable personalities, being more likely to marry earlier, being more likely to have successful social and professional lives. So, this is how we allow our schemas and stereotypes to skew our judgments. And think about the role of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? People who believe that an attractive person possesses certain desirable characteristics may actually act in ways that elicit those very characteristics. So you would be nicer to the person, you would be more forgiving, you would have more grace, you would be more understanding. If they had bad behavior, you kind of toss it off as nothing. Whereas if they aren't as attractive, you might not be willing to do those things as much. So this video, the halo effect video, I posted on Play-Doh. You can check that out. It's really fun kind of video describing how this halo effect works. Other observable characteristics, so attractiveness is associated with popularity, good interpersonal skills, and high self-esteem. We see that those are related in people. So if you are attractive, you are more likely to be popular, have good interpersonal skills, and have high self-esteem. And one has to ask, well, why? Is it just that attractive people also naturally have those other things? Or is it that they're treated in a way that brings about those other things? If you're attractive and you're treated nice your entire life, chances are you're pretty good with people. And chances are you have high self-esteem, right? But on the flip side, there are some negative assumptions that can go along with attractiveness, right? Especially when it comes to intelligence. We tend to see attractive people as not as intelligent as less attractive people. So there are some negatives to it, but in general, most of it's pretty positive. Okay, kind of moving on, we're going to get into attachment and intimacy. We're going to kind of go through this quickly. We know that parent-child interactions early in life are pivotal for forming the foundation of what our later romantic attachments are going to be like, and this could be due to oxytocin levels being released, bonding, who our first experiences are. All of this sets the stage for attachment and intimacy. We develop our sense of self and our self-esteem, as well as our interpersonal trust very early in life. We learn who to trust and who not to trust, and that's going to dictate how we attach. And attachment's a really big area of research. If we look at the various attachment styles, we see a securely attached individual as having high self-esteem and high interpersonal trust, the most desirable of all of them, and it leads to positive outcomes, including very rewarding relationships throughout life. Someone with a fearful, avoidant attachment style is going to have low self-esteem and low interpersonal trust. They're not going to trust people very good, and they're not going to think really well about themselves. Someone who's preoccupied attachment style would have low self-esteem, but high interpersonal trust. They have a strong motivation to have a relationship with other people, but that's coupled with their fear of rejection. So, it doesn't make for a good combination. Their low self-esteem and fear of rejection can lead them not to attach properly. However, they want to, and they're very willing to trust people. A dismissing attachment style would be high self-esteem and low interpersonal trust. And this is a very conflicted style. Individuals feel deserving of a good relationship because they think really highly of themselves, but they're suspicious of possible partners, so they don't trust very easily. And this could be due to being let down early in life, not having good attachment with parents has led them to mistrust others and their motives. Okay, romanticism, Romeo and Juliet effect, romantic love. All of these I kind of want you guys to go through in the book on your own. I did want to spend just a little bit of time on Sternberg's triangular model of love. He covers different areas of different types of relationships that we would see. If we break it down here, you see he has 8 different styles, with consummate love having the best types of relationships. And he orders it in arrangement of the 3 basic components of love, which are intimacy, commitment, and passion. If you think of those 3 elements, we get 8 distinct styles that can come out of that. And you see the different pairings. These are all described in your book of what that would look like. So if we go back to this slide, passion is the physical or sexual attraction to another. Intimacy is closeness and strength of tie to another person. Decision and commitment is being committed to nurturing that relationship despite odds or despite obstacles. So it's the combination of these 3 components that leads to the different styles, depending upon what the combination is. So you want to kind of go over those. The last area is conflict. What happens when we have it? I want you guys kind of focusing on what happens with jealousy. Where does jealousy occur most, and what kinds of relationships? What does it lead to? And what about rejection? And then the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. This is really big in counseling psychology. This is an area that many couples who are going through counseling will learn and approach, is how to argue correctly and how to navigate conflict, right? What kind of style do you tend to gravitate towards? Criticism, contempt, stonewalling, or defensiveness? These are the 3 kind of four kind of barriers to good communication and conflict. So learning what these are and how to avoid them is key. All right, guys, that wraps up this lecture burst. I hope you all have a great week.